Making progress on this wall. So over yonder you can see where there's still a lot of this bittersweet vine. Down here we just got some remnants. Well, a lot of shoots. So it's an invasive vine, Asiatic Bittersweet. And that's about as thick as it'll get. This is a mighty trunk. So this will completely pull your wall apart over time. That's one reason I don't like it. Because it literally pulls the wall apart, tumbles it down. And so then, of course, you can't just pull it out because you'd be also pulling the wall apart. So I gather that wall used to be like this one is Concord grape, although here we've got some of this bittersweet. I've been trying to remove it from this area, and that's one way I'll remove it, is just to pull the shoots. But of course, usually it'll break like that. So it has a load of strategies, the way I see it. You know, it has this strategy of, it's just a destroy strategy, really. It hasn't learned how to coexist here. So it just wrecks everything. It grows right up to the crown of a tree and chokes it out. It'll overgrow entire acres and swathes of property. And I can't fix the entire problem, but I can fix this wall. That's what I figure. You know, it's down to about there. And so it was this whole area. So I'm about halfway through the initial phase, which is just, you know, chopping down all the green. And then I'll pull all the roots I can, and any roots I can't, I just have to keep coming back and killing the shoots. And as long as it keeps shooting, it's taking energy out. And so then you pull that shoot before it gets a chance to put too much energy in. Eventually the plant gives up. That's my theory. Well, that's a theory. So I have come up with a specific tool. I've used bill hooks, machetes, knives, fork bills, all kinds of stuff. And this is my current vine slasher and saw and pruner. So it used to have a long finger guide here and a sharpening choil down there that would hang up. By which I mean, if you're slashing, that finger guard would catch on something before the blade, making it fairly useless. And then this sharpening choil here, if I wanted to prune, then the vine would hang up in that choil, and then because of the straight edge, it wouldn't really cut like that, because this stuff is, it's peculiar how it, you know, for example, you have this elasticity here, and then it goes very fibrous when you bend it. So although it's soft and you can rip the roots up, it can be very time-consuming to deal with. And so I've been pondering what's the ideal strategy. Because you could obviously just go in down here without cutting any of this green stuff, just clamber in down here and start cutting here. Yet I've always felt that it was going to be simpler to start out. I mean, this pocket here is here because I slashed. You know, so if you wanted to go in through here and get to that, and then it's all a tangle in there, you know, all these roots. They're all twined and tangled together. So yeah, the way I see it, you've really just got to start and work your way top down, as it were, and chop it all into pieces. And then, of course, an interesting consideration is that you chop a piece of this and it goes flying off into the field, it can reroot. So I try and gather everything and make a brush pile that'll get dried out in the sun, and then I'll burn that all. So yeah, this tool, I can slash my way in. I can also, you know, get something like this onto my tooth there. And cut it. And down here I can use this saw to very good effect on this stuff. From what I've read, there is a native bittersweet vine, and because it's very similar to the invasive one, which I'm certain this is, it'll be found in the same, they'll often be found growing together, and they can hybridize. And I've noticed that there is this one often growing around where this bittersweet is. I don't know whether this is the native bittersweet vine, but that's how I'm treating it, because I'm certain that it's not the same thing. Although it does grow in a slightly similar fashion, it clearly doesn't get as big, and it's not so aggressive. So I'm not going for a scorched earth thing here where I just kill everything. I'm going to leave this, and anything, you know, whatever, native grasses, dandelions, whatever's growing here, I'll leave that. I'll just keep hammering on this. You know, this root here may be able to pull the whole thing out. Or, nah, it's never the whole thing comes out. But it's like a plant that will give up little pieces of itself relatively easily or with difficulty, depending on the technique, you know. And so then what I would like to do is get cuttings of the Concord grape and try and get the Concord grape growing back along here. You know, fertilize it, treat it well, and keep hammering the bittersweet. And I understand that invasive, non-native species must eventually naturalize and come into harmony with the environment. But I don't have, probably in my lifetime, time to wait for that to happen. So, you know, that could be thousands of years. So I'm intervening. And I'm pretty confident that I can make a difference in my local ecosystem. And it's so my notion is not to try and exterminate the bittersweet and wage eternal war on it. I just want to clarify with it where it can do its business and where it can't. Sorry, I kept saying Concord grape. It's Concord grape, right? Because so I realized that because this stuff it's kind of thick and resistant, you know, it's a question of how much you're going to make it through anything before you just get tangled up. So I don't think that a long machete maybe works quite as well, because a long machete, it would be great for something like grass or something where you're just scything your way through. But once there's a lot of resistance to what you're chopping or slashing, you're swinging something that's a lot heavier. You know, it's not as efficient, whereas this thing being short, I can be very targeted with my slashes and chops. Moreover, it's got the tooth and the saw, so you just get everything done with this one thing. So I'm just going to take a break with these guys before I continue with the slashing or whatever projects. And I have some reflections about this, dealing with this invasive vine. Doesn't belong. And so it's interesting for me to consider the strategy, the invasive strategy of my adversary. And I notice that it grows very quickly, very vigorously, but it needs a pre-existing structure to move onto. And it won't just grow out here in the wilds of the forest. It likes it where there's some development, you know, so you've already built a wall or you have a nice ornamental tree, and it comes along and says, oh, this looks just right for me. You know, nothing against it. The good Lord made it the way he did for a reason, I'm sure. But that's what it does. Whether it's a wall or a tree, it's going to destroy. And it's going to spread itself out and continue. And clearly, to check this destructive progress, persistence is key. But prior to that, something that I think is key is recognizing that you've got an issue. You got to do something about it. So the previous inhabitants of the property decided that it was going to be too much trouble to remove it, so they would turn it into a hedge. And that hedge requires constant maintenance because it'll grow 10 feet high in 1 year and block your view and take over everything. So, and yeah, every time you chop the top and you don't touch the roots, that kind of provokes this explosion of new growth. So it became very well rooted over perhaps the decade or more that it was becoming a hedge. And then when I came in, I got a lot of things to do other than trim hedges. But one day I noticed that you couldn't really see the horizon anymore looking out the window in that direction. So yeah, okay, I got an issue. And yeah, I think I've already detailed what I'm doing about it. Thanks for watching.